So, welcome to the first episode of the podcast slash video podcast, and I hope it won't be the last one. First guest today is Intricate Explorer, also going by the name of Nicholas, your real name. Hi, good to have you on the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. This is actually my first podcast ever, so I'm super happy to be on your podcast. I actually have a small podcast where I've interviewed quite a few other photographers on it, but I've never been the one being interviewed, so it's going to be interesting to change it up.
Okay, cool. So maybe let's start where you're coming from, and maybe before we go into that, we just talked about it before. So I personally know you from your YouTube channel. You have one really great video about living in a Prius. We have several ones, but like one of them really blew up and went viral. I think it's called how to live in your Prius like a boss, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep, self-sleeping like a boss in your Prius.
Yeah, and a couple of 100,000 people saw that one, including me, and I thought it's super inspiring. I was really, instantly hooked up, and watched a couple of other videos after that. I think you give great advice. But let's dig into that a bit deeper. And so you're from the US, I think Colorado, if I'm right.
Yeah, so I actually was born and raised in Colorado, Castle Rock, Colorado, which was this really small town when I first grew up there. And now it's like growing to this huge exponential town, which honestly seems to be the case with almost every city in the United States that's got mountains in it nowadays.
Okay. You've basically been born there and grew up there. So how old are you now, actually?
So right now I'm 28 years old. And so I've lived there my whole life. We actually moved to California for 2 years, and then we moved back because it was a mistake. I love the mountains way more than California, so it was just meant to be. And I basically grew up just hiking and exploring the mountains all the time because there's just so much to do in Colorado. It's just, endless lakes, trails, Rocky Mountain National Park. There's tons of stuff in the Denver metro area. There's 14ers, there's skiing, snowboarding, literally every outdoor activity you could think of in the winter and summer exists in Colorado. So it kind of became this perfect playground for me when I was growing up. And my parents would always just take us into the mountains to go skiing on the weekends and just exploring. And I started off shooting or hiking pretty small trails with my parents. But I was always a little bit rebellious, so I kind of got into doing more crazy stuff, and that eventually led me to doing like 14,000 foot mountains in Colorado, which I've done 33 of. There's a total of 58 in all in Colorado, so it's actually one of my side goals to hike to the top of all of them. But there's just so much to do in Colorado. That'll give you like a little taste of what it's like out there.
Yeah, great. Sounds great. If I ever make it to Colorado, then I'm sure you can give me some advice. And a couple of your YouTube videos also are already about that. Like at some point you decided to become a YouTuber, and I think basically the first intention of your YouTube channel, I think, was just showing a bit of your adventure and travel photography, nature photography. When did you start shooting?
I started shooting photography in 2018, at the start of 2018. And it's actually a pretty funny story. So I started shooting photography not for a reason that a lot of other photographers start shooting photography. So I'd actually just... Yeah. So I actually had just gotten, I just finished college, and I just gotten out of a 4-year-long relationship. And it was the only girlfriend I've ever had, the only girl I ever dated. And when it ended, I wasn't really sure what direction I wanted to go in my life. I was a little bit lost, confused about where to put my energy and where to go. So just talking to a lot of my friends, I realized I wanted to get back into the dating game because I'd never really experienced dating before. And I pretty much just dived head on into that world for the next year. And it was just literally became about me just trying to meet as many girls as possible, just flirting with people all the time. And I worked at a high-end restaurant in Boulder, Colorado, where there was a lot of hot chicks, and it was basically just like a flurry of roller coaster emotions up and down that whole year of just dating everyone I possibly could. And I think it was some weird thing where I was like trying to find some kind of light in that world, but eventually I realized it wasn't really working out. And one thing I was doing on the side was I was actually shooting photography for my Instagram account, mainly just to look good so I could get more girls. Because yeah, because like oddly enough, like nowadays, like, you know, you ask for someone's phone number, it's like not as valuable as asking for an Instagram, because if you ask for someone's Instagram, then like you can at least show that you have some like skills, like they could see that you got this like dope profile. It gives you a bit more clout, as they call it. So I was trying to build that. And what I started to realize when the whole, you know, just dating thing wasn't really like what I was looking for, it wasn't really that fulfilling for me, was that the photography was actually what I was really starting to enjoy. So it kind of became this side thing where I was like, I actually really like this photography. Whereas initially I was just doing it just to get girls, but it eventually became something I actually found a lot of peace in and comfort, and still do to this day. I mean, I was shooting every couple days and just on my cell phone, and eventually I worked up to buying a full a full mirrorless camera with like the full lens setup, drones, and then just put all my time into that. Because I mean, every time I go shoot, it just feels like a different challenge, I guess you could say, that you have to like figure out to come out with a good photo. So that challenge was just like something that would keep me occupied, and like every single day I'd get that photo as like my trophy and feel like I completed some kind of task, whether it was, like I said earlier, like hiking this huge mountain, or you know, going swimming in this water, this murky water, just to get a shot of yourself in it. And from there it just kind of spiraled up, and I just kept shooting over the years.
So you've been doing this since 2018, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. So along that journey, I saw on a couple of videos you described like how you were making money along the road. How is it today? Like, are you doing some kind of remote job, or are you selling photography, or like how do you approach that?
So back when I was living in my Prius, so that was actually like honestly the biggest conflict in the entire you know, world of getting into photography, is like I was shooting photography enough in Colorado, and then eventually I realized, you know, like I have to commit to this lifestyle like fully if I actually want to, you know, go somewhere with it, instead of just shooting the same old mountains and lakes every day. So I'm like, I have to move into some kind of vehicle. So at the time, like I said, I was waiting tables. I didn't really have like a remote job. So I started thinking, I'm like, how can I do this on the road? So that's when I started looking into like Uber driving, Lyft driving, DoorDash. I'm not sure if those are the names of the exact services they have in Germany, but you know, just basically gig upon me, like delivering food, delivering people places. And I'm like, well, if I live in a Prius, I could have the gas MPG to be able to actually live on the road and do that and make money at the same time. And I've always been a pretty like organized person, like OCD organized, like everything has a certain spot. So when I was like, I saw the challenge of like, can I fit everything I own into a Prius and have people in it to drive around? It was this like challenge where I'm like, I have to figure out how to do this. So I just like, you know, figured out that setup, which was the video you saw. And then I just started Lyft and Uber driving. And it was actually pretty good money. I want to say like 20, 25 an hour. And if you do it right, you can like fix your taxes, so you don't really have to pay taxes because you just write all of it off from all the like insane miles you're driving over the year. So that was really good money for a while. And then eventually I met Haley, my girlfriend, and we decided we want to do this big trip through, you know, Mexico and Central America. And I was like, okay, well, I'm not gonna be able to do Lyft and Uber driving on the road or DoorDash or anything, so I need to figure something out, because she's got a van, she wanted me to move into it. And, you know, I can't make money in her van Uber driving us around while we live in this huge setup. So I basically spent the next like 6 months just working overtime on Lyft and Uber, saving up a bunch of money, and saved up about 10K. And now we're just going for like 9 months, just shooting every day. So to answer your question, basically I just saved up a bunch of money for this out of the country trip because I don't have a Prius right now that I can work in the United States with.
Okay, great. So now you're in Mexico or in Mid America for a couple of months, basically, right?
Hmm.
So that's the
So
plan, yeah.
so the idea was it's the whole thing's supposed to be like a 9 month trip. We wanted to start in Colorado and work our way up to, well, actually start in Washington. We drove from Colorado, then drive all the way down the Pan American Highway. So down Washington, through Oregon to California, through Mexico, all the way through Central America to Panama over the course of 9 months. So that's where we're at now. We just came over from Baja, California like 2 weeks ago, and our van broke down in
Oh,
Guadalajara. So that's why I'm in a hotel room right now.
all right, okay. So the maybe let's make a quick move to the contrast of living in a Prius and a van, because I watched that video where where you were announcing you moving from the Prius to the van, and I mean it's a huge leap in terms of comfort and room. But what I really liked about your Prius videos is that you were basically the only guy on all the YouTube videos I was checking who didn't put like kind of all his belongings into the car, but was like approaching it like in kind of a minimalist way. Um, like, did you always had that kind of approach, like that kind of minimalism lifestyle, or was it something you did out of necessity because you had to kind of fit the most needed stuff into the Prius and still be able to drive people in the car when you were doing Uber or Lyft game?
I think it was a lot of things all happening at once. So coincidentally, right when I was thinking about moving into the Prius, I remember like one Christmas morning where I was at my parents' house and we were like, we'd all open presents and, we were eating food and we are just hanging out. We're like, well, what should we do? And we decided to watch something on Netflix and we were just scrolling through things. My mom's like, pick whatever you want. And we put on this documentary that I saw about minimalism. I'm like, oh, that'll be interesting. And we put it on and we just start watching it. And it's just these guys talking about how like you should get rid of everything you own, like reduce your life to, just the bare bones. And it went on for like 30 minutes. My mom's like, did you put this on because we just all gave each other presents for Christmas and you're trying to say something to all of us? Because like the whole thing was just completely like anti, gifts and capitalism and buying. Yeah, that's the word. Yeah. So, no, that wasn't the reason. I honestly had no idea what the documentary was about. I thought it'd be more about like design minimalism because I was into graphic design at the time. But yeah, so that documentary just really, stuck with me. And I was like, I kind of want to try this. Just get rid of everything, just like the essentials you own. So I was like, well, what are the essentials that I want right now? Which is, my camera here, my laptop to be able to edit photos, and then just basic clothes, necessity. So I'm like, all right, well, let's do this. So I just went into my, house and just threw away like, or donated or sold literally everything I owned except for my bare essentials and moved it all into the Prius. And it honestly took a lot of trial and error. I initially started with way too much stuff and I just had to start getting rid of the things that I actually didn't need that you think you need.
What kind of stuff was it, like, for example?
I would just bring like extra blankets, like a tent, and like I honestly didn't end up camping as much as I thought I was going to, because I'm like, well, why would I camp when I have a car I could have here? And I wasn't doing much like in-depth backpacking because a lot of the experiences I would do, I'd go out by myself, and at the time I just wasn't really comfortable going out into the woods for a couple of days by myself. I don't know why. It was just a bit of a fear that I had. And so I would just stay in my car and hang out there. And, also I'd bring like books when it's like, you don't need a book. Like you can just bring a little Kindle that can hold thousands of books. So you don't need to carry books. I had like, I went pretty deep with the minimalism. Eventually I got rid of all my cooking gear and all I would drink was Soylent. Have you ever heard of Soylent?
No, what's that?
So it's this drink that's an all-you-can-drink meal powder. So it's got all the vitamins, minerals, proteins, carbs. you need to live off it. It's pretty controversial. The owner of the company actually lived off it entirely for a year before he released it. And I had some friends in college that were into it, and I would drink it
And
every
he
once
still
in a
lives,
while. I
right?
was like, yeah, he's still like that. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to drink this all day. And I just got rid of all my cooking gear, and all I would drink was
That's
like,
pretty
I'd say,
radical. Are you
yeah,
still doing
very
that,
like,
or you did that for a long period of time, or?
yeah, in the Prius, I was doing it about 80% of my meals were Soylent. And then I'd eat like some kind of food out once a day usually. So yeah,
Yeah.
that was my minimalism tactic with food.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why your video resonated that well with me is that I kind of a couple of years ago, I think it's like 3 years ago, I read a book about minimalism. It's called Goodbye Things, from some Japanese dude who like described like how he did it and what are the benefits of living with a minimalist lifestyle. And I basically did pretty much the same, not as radical as you, but like I also sold a huge bunch of my stuff. And honestly, I have to say I feel much better since then. I think I still could like get rid of tons of things and not miss them at all like after they're gone. But I think it's an interesting experiment to try. And it certainly helps when you're trying to go that path that you went with the lifestyle on the road. And I think it makes maybe a couple of things harder, but a lot of stuff easier.
Hmm. Yeah, it definitely clears your mind. It makes you, have to focus on what you have because it's like, okay, I have a camera and that's about it, a laptop. So I guess I'm gonna go shoot because that's all I can do. So it kind of makes you focus on one thing, which is what I really want to do. So I'd highly recommend it to anyone who's interested in it. There's definitely like a limit to it though, because
Mm.
there's a point where you can take it too far, where like you just get rid of too much stuff, and it's like, okay, well, you actually need some things, and there's also like what I like to call like the creature comforts that like you probably don't need, but I think they're
Oh,
essential
wait a second.
because it's just for your psychology and your mental health.
Yeah. Sorry, like I thought I lost you, but you like it was just like a
You can't
hold
hear
on
me.
for a second. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think it broke up. Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah, I mean, I was just saying I'd recommend it to anyone who'd want to try it.
Yeah. So right now, you are living in the big van. Is there anything like how did it change your approach to that minimalism? Like, are you having more belongings right now, or is it just more comfortable because you have a like a proper bed in there? Um,
It's mainly more comfortable, to be honest, like a bit roomier. I'd say like the biggest things I changed were we've added a lot more foods to our cabinet, so a lot of the space that I didn't have before in the Prius is now get dedicated to food because we like to cook meals, and Haley doesn't like drinking Soylent for 80% of her meals. So surprisingly,
yeah.
so we actually cook a lot of our food now, and I ended up getting a few more clothing items. So like when we go out, we could actually dress differently and stuff. Whereas before I had like 5 shirts and 2 shorts, so a bit more shoes and basically just that kind of stuff. Not much else. But I still like to keep in the back of my mind like the minimalism aspect of everything.
Yeah. Um, I don't want to narrow it down too much on the Prius thing because when people watch your channel, it's much more than that. But as it is your most popular content on your YouTube channel, so the how to live in your Prius like a boss video really blew up. I have no idea like how quick it got that many views, but how did that hit you? Probably I can imagine it was a big surprise. Did it change the approach on how you made videos? I mean, like you did do some Prius content after that, but did you plan to do that anyway, or was it like, okay, now I got the clicks, like let's try to build up on that, or what was the process behind it?
Yeah, so it was actually really interesting because I think that video was just honestly just a one-off video. Like I'd been making random photography videos on the channel, like random tutorials and stuff, and I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna make a video about my Prius setup today because why not? and that video just ended up blowing up for some reason, which I still to this day I'm not really sure why. I think it just had a lot of value in it. Like there was just endless, good tips about how to do it. It was basically a complete system about how to go from
Yeah.
living in a house, living in a Prius. So I think it was just a very valuable video. But yeah, I honestly didn't expect that to gain views. I just expected it to be just like any of my other videos at the time when I was just starting YouTube, getting like maybe 80 views or something. That's what I was expecting. But it just kept going up higher and higher. And eventually I was like, all right, well, I can make more videos about this because people want to know more about the setup. So then I started making a video about like the food, how to get electricity, like where to sleep, where to get Wi-Fi.
The clothes as well.
Yeah, how to do it during the pandemic because things were closing down. So just basically everything I could think of, how to Lyft and Uber drive in it, all that kind of stuff. And eventually got to the point where I felt like I had done the Prius videos. I was like, okay, like I've given every piece of information I know about living in this Prius, which created this weird, I guess you say juxtaposition in my mind where I was like, I don't know if I should keep doing this or not, because people were saying like, make more Prius videos, make more Prius videos, make more Prius videos. And I was like, I just
But they didn't tell you like what kind of Prius videos, like just like keep them coming or?
Yeah, and I would ask people, I'd be like, well, what do you want to see? And they would just say like, they wouldn't reply most of the time. One guy was like, make Prius vlogs. And I was like,
oh my God. All right.
Honestly, my first thought was like, that song's kind of stupid to me. So I was like, I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. But are you aware that there is a huge Prius community, like living Prius lifestyle community on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm pretty well aware of it. I watched a few other people's videos, and I was pretty active on the Reddit community for a while. I think that was actually a contributor to a lot of the views because I posted that video on that subreddit and it raised to like the top videos in that subreddit. So I had this constant stream of people flowing in from that video on Reddit. So I think Reddit had a lot to do with that. But yeah, it was. It is a cool community, but I honestly haven't dived too deep into like the other videos because I just didn't really care, to be honest. I like I said, I mainly made the Prius video as like a one-off video, and I'm really glad it blew up and everything. But I guess to answer your question, Oh, go ahead.
No, just finish the sentence first.
Oh, I was just gonna say to answer your question before is if I was gonna keep making those videos. I think I got to the point where I was like, okay, I've done this, so I'm just going to make my photography videos, which is, initially why I started YouTube in the first place. And I was like, even if I don't get a lot of views, at least I'm having fun and I'm learning how to take photos better and edit and all that stuff. So I'm just going to keep posting these videos anyway. And that's what I was doing.
And I think it really can fuck with your mental. I don't want to use the word mental health too much, but like I think if you let it, dictate the approach how you make content, then you get into a weird place where you like kind of feel forced to do. I don't know. In this case, maybe Prius videos, and kind of give too much shit about the clicks or whatever. So I think that's a good approach, like how you're doing it.
Yeah, I could definitely see how you could get sucked into that content like machine, because there was a moment where I was making those Prius videos where I was like, I wonder if I could just keep this going, and keep getting bigger and bigger. But I was like, do I really want to be known as the Prius guy? Is this what I want to do with my life? Like become a Prius YouTuber? I was like, no, I want to take photos. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think that happens to some guys, especially when they're doing, I don't know, like if you love it, then that's a different thing. But like, let's say that the whole gamer Twitcher thing, like maybe you do it because you're passionate about it, and then at some point you make so much money about it, you're so popular for that you kind of feel like you have to do streaming like 8, 9, 10 hours a day, even though it sucks and feels like you cannot really get away from that,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it definitely sucks you in, so you gotta be careful of that.
Yeah. So another thing I watched are like you said you are on the journey to like 10,000 adventures you want to document. A couple, I think 5-6 months ago, you stopped making videos on YouTube. was it due to the pandemic, or did you say like, okay, I don't, it's just too much work, or like what was the reason for that?
So I still shoot 5 days a week, but I'm
Yeah.
posting mainly nowadays on my photography blog online, on my website, and some other social media platforms like Instagram, occasionally Facebook. But as far as YouTube goes, I was getting a little bit tired of the same vlog
Mm.
format I was doing over and over. I think I have
Yeah.
like 250 of those vlogs,
Yeah, well,
and
quite
they
a
take a
lot.
while. They take a
Yeah.
while to make. Each one
Yeah.
would average like I'd say like you know 3 hours of filming, and then another 4, sometimes 5 or 6 hours of editing for those videos.
Yeah.
And I'd just done so many, I was just kind of getting bored with it. So I stopped about a couple months ago, and I was just like, I'm gonna take some time off from the videos
Yeah.
and focus more on the photography, and maybe I'll come back to doing some kind of videos on YouTube in a little bit when I could think a bit more clearly about some new kind of content. I've kind of been juggling ideas with some like longer form content,
Hmm.
like giant travel montage or something in
Hmm.
the like funny category, something more like
Yeah.
humorous in photography, because that's a
Hmm.
area I haven't really seen. So I don't know. We'll see where it goes, but I'm just taking some time off from that. But yes, to circle back to the 10,000 adventures thing, that was basically my initiative to keep myself disciplined with photography.
Hmm.
Uh, I I take a lot of inspiration. Have you ever seen like Jocko Willink online, or Gary V?
Gary V, yeah.
Or yeah, he's a great motivator. But a lot
Yeah,
of them
yeah,
talk
I
about
can relate to that. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, like whenever I wonder if you've ever done it, but whenever I'm like getting amped to go do something, a lot of times I'll just watch a clip of theirs or people like Gary V, and it'll get me amped to go do something. So
The great ass
they
kick,
talk a
right?
lot about yeah, exactly.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, I
they
love
talk
that
so
as
much
well.
about repetition in doing things. So
Yeah.
the 10K adventures was just an ideal to get me to shoot as much as possible. And if there's a day I don't feel like shooting photography, I go do it anyway, because I think that's truly how you get good at something, is just keeping yourself as disciplined as possible.
But on those bad days, let's call them bad days, after you didn't kind of forced yourself to do it, like were you glad that you did it, and like kind of watching the footage and then like, okay, cool that I did it, because if I just stayed in the Prius or on the couch or wherever, I would be kind of, yeah, more down than at the beginning of the day.
Yeah, exactly. I always like to say the days where you don't want to shoot are a lot of times the days where you get your best shots.
Mhm.
And it's just the hardest part is just that getting started thing. I mean, it's like people say the same thing about going to the gym. Like if you just walk to the gym, even if you don't feel like doing it, and just like stand there and look around for a couple of minutes, like you're
Yeah,
probably going to start doing something because you're already
yeah,
there. So just getting yourself into the landscape and then start shooting from there. And yeah, I mean, I've taken some insane shots on days where I was literally laying in bed like, I don't want to do this. All I want to do is watch YouTube videos and pass out. But,
yeah,
you do it anyway. And once you start getting in that flow, like, it just happens.
yeah. So you talked about Gary Vee. Like this is maybe a good approach to tackle the next question. Like, what are your inspirations like for whatever you do? I mean, like you obviously talked about the motivational inspiration, but like maybe photography or videography. I think you're more of kind of have a bit more love for photography than for videography, even though you like both, right?
Yeah, I would definitely
Yeah,
err on the photography side. Whenever I was doing the vlogs, I'd always be like, the preference is to get a better photo, even if that doesn't mean getting as much B-roll shots or a good enough video. Because there's always a moment where the sun's setting and like you have like a choice. You can take great B-roll of yourself setting up a shot with the lighting, or you could get a good photo. And I would
yeah,
always err on the side of getting a good photo instead of getting the good B-roll. So aspiration-wise, I would say just to keep shooting as much as possible, and eventually what I'm working on right now is building out a kind of course that could help people
mhm,
uh, learn how to shoot better and explore more, and basically use adventure photography to help become a better person, because it's made such a big difference in my life. Not necessarily the technical aspects of shooting, but the idea of going out and overcoming some kind of challenge in the adventure of the photography, and then adapting or integrating the lesson you learn from that into your everyday life. Because,
Yeah.
you know, every shoot has some kind of lesson in it. And whether it's something small, like minuscule, or it's some really big realization, I think it makes you a better person. So I want to spread that message to people eventually. And I'm in the process of building out that course. But, you know, right now I'm just trying to get better and better at photography so that when I do release that course, like, people can see that it's, you know, reputable, and I'm not just some guy who just started photography. So I'm in the process of building up a brand right now.
Hmm. Yeah, well, I think that's a great approach because I also can relate to that. I've been traveling China for a couple of months. Obviously, it's not possible right now, but I also took my gear with me and everything, and yeah, I took some nice shots and everything. But I think like the whole process of, you know, the journey, meeting people, seeing other cultures, seeing other places, it really changes you somehow, and mostly for the better. I mean, like, of course it's connected to the experiences you make, but I think as you just said it very well, it's something that I also can recommend to anybody. I mean, like, especially when you're kind of feeling that you are kind of stuck in your life, or like there should be like more meaning to it. I don't know, if you're not satisfied with your job or the position in your life that you're in, or even if everything is fine. Like, it's always good to have some new input, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I think just, you know, there's something about challenges, I think, that, you know, makes you grow as a person. So whether you're doing that just through, you know, hiking or running or whatever it is you're doing, I think that overcoming some kind of challenge is really beneficial to your health. And I just happen to do it through the medium of photography because that helps give me a goal and a platform to do it.
I saw one video where you just we're having a monologue about like art in general. Like, some people like to dance, some people like to shoot videos, and like all kind of different aspects of art. Are there any other art forms that do inspire you, even though they're not related directly to photography or videography?
uh, to be honest, like I love music, but I've never,
Yeah.
and I almost always edit with music, and I've also tested shooting with music a lot. If I'm on an adventure by myself, a lot of times I'll just bring earphones and just listen to music the entire time.
Hmm.
So I'd say music is really, really inspirational to me, and it helps me get into the photography flow a lot better, especially if I'm editing or something. But in terms of like creating music, I've never been a very audio oriented person. I I just can't follow, or I can't produce beats very well. I've heard if you practice,
You
like you can
tried
get
it.
into
It
the
sounds like you
rhythm.
tried it.
I have tried it.
Yeah.
I used to play like have you ever played a like Rock Band or Guitar Hero?
Yeah.
The video
Yeah.
games when you're a kid. Yeah, I
Yeah.
used to do those all the time. And
Yeah.
honestly, I was always the singer guy because I couldn't stay
Okay.
on beat with the drums or anything. But yeah, I've definitely tried it. But I've also tried like harmonica because it's so like
Hmm.
small enough to bring around. But I've never really been that great at it. So I love consuming that kind of content and media, but I've just never been one to produce it. Um, I also drew a little bit when I was a kid,
Hmm.
but I never really took that much further than that.
So no drawing anymore.
Nah, not really. I did do a little bit of graphic design in college, uh,
Yeah.
mainly just because it was fun to like design logos. And for a while, that was where I was thinking I was going to take my career. But photography is just way more fun.
So what did you study actually?
I studied advertising.
Advertising. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but is it something that you still want to do, or is it like kind of, yeah, studied it, but you're
Um,
not that much into it anymore?
yeah, I'm just not. I mean, the cool thing about advertising is that it can be extremely applicable to, you know, creating some kind of business or movement or anything, or which is eventually what I want to do with this photography.
Mhm.
So it's really beneficial in that world, and I could keep all the skills I learned from that. I did work in the industry for a little while, but you know, I was starting off in the industry, so I was just a lot of times I was the guy who would clean up the cocktail parties after the events and do all the like basic research on things, and it was just not really that fun. Like, I just don't like doing things for like taking orders from other people in terms of a job, which is why I've always been like, I'm going to do ride delivery and food delivery, because it's like you don't really have a boss in those jobs. There's no one telling you what to do besides the passenger who's going to be gone in 30 seconds. So I've just always resonated with like doing my own thing. So
did you ever because now that you just said it, like I remember a couple of years ago I was like not really satisfied with my job. It was I was working as a PR manager. And I remembered back then when I was like still studying, I had a side job in a cinema, and I was basically cleaning the movie theaters after the movies ended. And even though the pay was very low, and basically we had to have pretty much no skills for it. I kind of missed that because I had many colleagues that I could talk to. I was like constantly walking from one cinema to the other one, and not sitting on my ass for like 8 hours straight. Is that like how did you feel when you did the whole Uber and Lyft driving? Was it like kind of fun because you could listen to music? You were always like seeing changing environments, or did it get kind of repetitive at some point?
that's actually a good question. At first, I used to love the aspect of like talking to other people. So like with Lyft and Uber, like all these random people just get in your car. And I'd say like maybe 30% of them actually want to have some type of conversation. So I'd always start it off with like, how's your day going? And from that question, you could always tell if they want to talk or not. Most people just say, like, if they're like, oh, good, then just kind of like look out the window. I'm like, all right, I guess we're just listening to music this ride.
Yeah.
But like, if they're like, good, I did this, then you could actually get into some like really in-depth conversations with people. And that's what I absolutely loved about it. It was like I'd meet people who like I'd never even, had ever interacted with before. Like I remember meeting this one dude, I think he stood out the most as he was the guy who would tell people that they were about to die when they're in a doctor's office if they got a really bad diagnosis.
Well, that's
So,
his, like kind of his main job, or
yeah, that was his main job. He was like
wow.
the psychology explainer of like how to process that. Like the doctor would, give the diagnosis, like you have cancer, you're going to die in 2 months. And then he would walk in and be like, here's how you deal with that.
Okay.
So I was like, this is, so he was just telling me a lot about his job, and I learned a lot about that. And, all the way from meeting people in that profession to, meeting people who are going out for the night and just have like a good story to, drunk families getting in your car, talking shit. Like it was just so fun. Like you never know who's going to get in your car. And so that was great. And then eventually I was like, I could, actually optimize this a little better if I'm doing food delivery, because I didn't have to have people getting in my car all the time. And like as much as I love doing that, when COVID hit, it started to become a little bit of an issue with sanitation and space, because I was living in it. And I was like, I don't know if I want these people breathing in my car that I'm about to go sleep in.
Yeah.
And then also, people would throw up in your car, which sucks when you live in your car.
You described that in one video. Yeah, I was feeling that. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go get that clean. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna do food delivery, and you make about the same amount doing food delivery. So, and you get to move around a bit more, which is nice. You can actually get out of your car and walk.
Yeah.
So once that hit, I would basically just load up some podcasts and audiobooks and just listen for my 10-hour shifts. And
but that's great. I mean, like you can basically learn something new on the go and still make money. I think that's also one of the beauties of YouTube and podcasts and all the new media. I mean, like audio is like not kind of new, but because you had all the radio shows back in the days, but like the way you consume it right now is just so convenient.
Yeah, I mean, it was amazing. Like you could be like making 25 bucks an hour and listening to an audiobook about how to improve your photography or whatever it is you're interested in at the time. Like say you're starting up a business, you could be learning how to do business. Or, obviously I couldn't do that for 10 hours straight. So I generally spend a couple hours listening to like some comedian podcasts.
Sure, yeah.
Or, just audiobooks like by whatever author I was into at the time. I listened to a lot of Stephen King and stuff like that. So yeah, I would just switch it off back and forth.
Is there Anything like for all the people you met on your Uber and Lyft rides, anything that kind of changed, like not your thinking of something, or like more like moved you to taking action in a certain aspect? Because maybe to illustrate a bit better what I mean, I remember a couple of years ago, I think it's already 15 years ago or something like that. I was eating at a restaurant having lunch, and there was this businesswoman coming in, and I was like, for some reason, I don't remember why, I was talking to her like, I just finished studying journalism, and I'm not sure if I should like do the master's degree now, or I should go to just work. And I also have the dream of learning Chinese and study Chinese, and I have no idea what I should do. Like, and then she was like, "Yeah, go for the Chinese. Like, it's the best time right now, because if you want to make use of it, then it's better to be young than, I don't know, like 60, 70 years old." Then kind of really gave me the courage to do it, and I ended up doing it. So that's why I went to China, and that's like why I had kind of really great adventures because of that. So did something similar happen to you while doing the riding?
I'd say like the most resonating people that I talked to at the time were probably there was a lot of businessmen who would get in my car because I'd give them rides to the airport and stuff, and a lot of people would be like, "Damn, I wish I was doing what you were doing because I'm stuck in this business job, with a family, and I can't travel or do what you're doing right now." So I would say, my best advice would be to just keep doing that for as long as you can. So that was encouraging because I was kind of at a place in my life right when I first started where I wasn't really sure if what I was doing was right, because my family was very much like, "What are you doing? You're about to move into a Prius?" Like, so it was encouraging, even if it was just from strangers, to be like, "Wow, that's actually a fascinating thing," because, like I said, at the time, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem about if this was a good thing for me or not. I was just like, I'm just trying this. So I'd say that was the best. Then there was also a lot of business guys I talked to who were really helpful about like advice about like scaling a business and creating a product. So just talking to some of them, I got some like ideas bounce around in my mind about the product I eventually want to create. So I'd say those were probably the most beneficial at the time.
Mm-hmm. So speaking of learning new things, the whole photography thing, you basically are also kind of a self-taught learner. I guess you're also watching a lot of YouTube tutorials and stuff like that to improve your photography, videography.
Yeah. So yeah, I've learned all my photography from just YouTube, honestly, and a lot of books and reading and stuff like that. And then just practicing as much as possible. I just don't see the point in going to an art school or a film school. Hopefully you didn't do that, or did you?
If I did that?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I did my bachelor's degree in journalism. I originally also had the intention to do kind of an art, like, what is it called? I don't know, like how to properly translate that, but like kind of, yeah, media production. And we had some of that as well, because it was the same university in our journalism classes. And what I quickly realized is that the way they teach you stuff is already very narrowed down to a specific approach. So I think if you learn it yourself, like it's basically mostly about like the techniques that you have to learn. But when they give you kind of homework, you have to do it like this or you have to do it like that, it really narrows down your creativity. It doesn't necessarily have to be like that, but I think the possibilities nowadays that people have with getting their basic, not even basic, like advanced knowledge, even professional knowledge from YouTube, and then just applying that knowledge to what they're doing or they really want to do, is just something that is so valuable and wasn't there like even, I don't know, 10 years ago.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to make sure you didn't major in film or photography or something. And
No,
I'm
like
like
I
talking
wouldn't take
shit
any
about
offense from that. It's
creating an
okay,
art
no
degrees.
problem. But
But
because
yeah,
I fully agree. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, yeah, journalism is great. I just don't think that doing a degree in like painting, you know, or dancing, especially if you're paying a lot of money for that kind of degree, or photography for that matter, film, like you could learn all that stuff on YouTube just as easily by going out and doing it yourself instead of paying $50K a year for some class about how to do it and then coming out with a certificate that the whole industry, the art industry, is about self-made, you know? So like you're not going to present your degree in painting to someone and get a job as a painter. So I definitely think that learning it on your own is definitely the way to do it if you're going to be in this kind of field.
Like, what is your favorite, you know, photography, how to say, like, okay, now you're seeing that I'm not a native. Like your favorite part of photography, if you want, so like portrait photography, nature photography. There's so many aspects of it. Like, are there some favorites that you have, or?
Definitely landscape comes to mind first. So then following up with that, you know, urban exploration and street photography, or some other genres I do dabble in on occasion. I have done portrait every once in a while. It is fun, but I would never want to do portrait. It's just not my forte. I like creating something that looks like kind of surreal. The whole, I'll explain this. If you're wondering why I go by the surname like Intricate Explorer online.
I wanted to ask that. Yeah, go ahead.
I like this is a good way to segue into it. I think it forms. It's almost like a character that I've created online that I like to think like explores this almost a little bit surrealist world. You know, obviously Instagram isn't real life, or a lot of photos we as photographers take nowadays, especially with like the level of editing you can do in Photoshop and stuff like that. It's not exactly real life. Like you look at some of these photos landscape photographers are taking, and it's like you show up there and you're like, this is not what it looked like at all.
Yeah.
So that's why I like to say Intricate Explorer is more of just a character that exists in a fantasy world that is just exploring this realm that I like to use as like, you know, a gateway to escapism and creating this environment from scratch. So that is probably my favorite part about photography, is just creating this, you know, almost fantasy-esque world through photographs. And I like to look for scenes that almost look like, you know, like ritualistic or almost a little bit staged to a certain degree, because they look so like strikingly beautiful. I think that helps contribute to the whole fantasy aspect of it. It's kind of like an escape for me.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, now that you kind of paused YouTube, I really enjoyed always watching your, I mean, I haven't watched all of them so far, but the ones I watched, I really enjoyed them, like your photography explorer videos. But I think the good thing about Instagram is that you can really, you know, show the essence of your work by just posting the photos. And I would have to double check right now. I don't think you have uploaded any reels. I think you're using stories and basically uploading photos at the moment, right?
Yeah, I haven't done much with reels, to be honest. I don't know, I just couldn't really get into the whole vertical format. It's just kind of weird to me.
Yeah.
I like being able to take in all different kinds of shapes, photos and stuff. So I honestly haven't dabbled with it much. I have made a few reels back in the day, and I did have a TikTok account for a while. But I think it was always the weirdest videos that would take off. I don't know if you've noticed that, but it would be like, I'd try and make like a bunch of videos about cool photography montages or tips or stuff like that, and they'd get like 80 views. And then I'd post a video like, I literally remember one time my girlfriend took me to go get a pedicure as a joke, like get my toes like all cleaned up and all that stuff. And I was like, wow, like I didn't realize being a male and getting a pedicure is so awesome, because they like massage your feet and all this stuff. And that video got, I think, like 800,000 views or something.
Okay.
And I was like, Jesus Christ. Like I've been trying to make photography videos like take off for ages, and then that video of me getting a fucking pedicure is just
It's like the kind of equivalent to the Prius video. But there are no more pedicure videos coming, right? Like,
no, unfortunately not.
Yeah, but people can find you on TikTok also by like your name Intricate Explorer, right?
Yeah, I haven't
Yeah.
posted on it in probably months, so it's not really that
Yeah.
active of an account.
Yeah, I have a TikTok profile. I think I don't know since 3 years, but I opened it and I was like, yeah, that's too much for me. Like I don't know, it's just random stuff. It's just so crazy, and it just like kind of makes me really nervous. So I just shut it off and then didn't use it. I just randomly like open it and then instantly close it. Maybe I find some approach to it at some point, but it's not for me at the moment. So I can understand that. Um,
It's insanely addicting too. I don't know if you've noticed, but like you get on it, it's just like you can just keep scrolling, and it's like
Scrolling, right? Yeah. Yeah, it's
I
the
think
same thing
that
for me when I use the, I don't know, like, is it the search function or like, it's not the feed in Instagram. It's like, I think there's search function. And if you're clicking on one video that you like or a photo and then you scroll downwards and it's just like the algorithm is like throwing stuff, similar stuff at you. And the next time you check the watch, it's like, okay, 20 minutes gone.
yeah, exactly. It's definitely not healthy. I'm like I had to delete the app like multiple times because I'd like post something and I'd be like, you know what, I'm just gonna delete this app, and then I'd post something and delete it. Can't keep it
But
off
are
my
you
phone.
still consuming YouTube a lot? Like for whatever
Uh,
reason, like,
yeah, I follow a few creators.
mm,
Ironically enough, I don't watch many photography videos
mhm.
just because like to me it's so boring. Like all the creators in the photography world, like no offense, most of them are just they don't keep my attention. I just can't do it, and it might also be that I'm shooting so much anyway that like I don't want to watch someone else go shoot when I just went on a photo shoot.
Yeah.
So a lot of the content I watch is usually just like prank channels, comedy channels, that kind of stuff. I don't know if
Yeah,
you've heard of
just to
like
get
Nelk,
some
Danny
distraction, mix it
Duncan.
up, right? Distraction, not destruction, and just mix it up, like not photography all the time, right?
Yeah, I think it just throws a little chaos into it, which is nice.
Yeah, I remember like one Missy Elliott interview, like when she still used to be a thing, where she said like she's not even listening to the other hip hop artists out there because for her it was like kind of like she wanted to just you know have the focus on her music and not get distracted by other trends or like sub how do you say that like in the back of her mind like following some stuff that is hot right now. So is that also something that is the reason why you're not watching too many other creators in the photography genre of YouTube, or is it really like
Yeah, I
you're kind
definitely
of
think
bored
it's
by it? Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it definitely also does a weird thing to your self esteem too, because it's like
Mm.
whether you mean to or not, like you're comparing yourself to other people when you're watching these people who do similar content to you. So I think there's an aspect of, at least with me, where I'll put myself down and be like, my stuff's not as good as that, or like why can't I do that? So I do try to avoid it a lot because I really like what just comes fresh off my mind, and I feel a lot more confident about stuff I put out when I haven't been comparing it to 20 other videos. But on the other hand, I feel like there's a level of input that you need to have in order to
Mm.
output. And I still do like to look at photography. I might not be looking at their videos, but I do follow a lot of big landscape photographers. And I think it adds a little bit of inspiration into some of the shots I take. Because I've
Mhm.
tried periods where I'd go like 2 weeks without looking at any photography content just to see like what it would do to my photography, and I'd realize sometimes it runs me a bit dry. I'm like, I feel like I need to try something new. So when I could look at other photographers and see like weird techniques and stuff, I'd be like, you know what, maybe I should try to apply that technique to this situation. And I ultimately think it makes you grow. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
double edged sword where it's like you got to balance between not looking at other people's stuff too much and comparing yourself to looking at it just enough to be able to provide input so that you can output.
What are your if you can name a few inspirations when it comes to photography, like some recommendations maybe for the listeners and viewers?
I follow one of my favorites is Mark Adamus. He's
Mhm.
just a boss at landscape photography. Um, I also like people like Nick Page did some great work. Sean Bagshaw is where I learned a lot of my Photoshop techniques from. He's just a complete animal in the editing world. So I'd highly recommend him to anyone that's looking out for that kind of stuff. And honestly, just a lot of random street photographers and other photographers I just can't name because I follow a lot of feature accounts on Instagram because they change it up a lot. So I don't always follow the same person because it gets kind of repetitive.
Yeah. Yeah, I just discovered it's been there for years now, but like there are also many street photographers on YouTube, and I really enjoy watching them. Like they always have like kind of a GoPro here or here, and then shooting, I don't know, in London or wherever they are, and talking you through the process, like how they shoot, like what settings they use, and like their creative approach to it. So I think that is sometimes also very inspiring, like basically just like you described it.
Yeah, it can definitely help with your photography to a certain degree.
So, have you been to any country outside of the US so far, or is it like first you want to, like Central America, and then see if you can up your game, or is there anything you already visited outside?
Yeah, I went to Buenos Aires in Argentina once, probably like 5 or 6 years ago, maybe even more, just for like a week to check it out, or maybe 2 weeks, I can't remember, which was pretty cool. And I think that was something that definitely gave me the travel bug, I guess you could say, because it was so mind-blowing. Like to see, I grew up in the United States, and just see everything in Spanish even was just the biggest mind trip to me. Just like seeing Spanish words at a restaurant, you're like, what? Like there's other cultures? So
Yeah.
as obvious as it is, like that stuff exists, but it's just when you're there in person, it's a whole different story. So yeah, like as I'm sure, like when you said you went to China, like it just opens your mind. So I think the next step for me was, well, we're just going to drive through Mexico and go through Central America, which has been really, really enlightening and honestly one of the coolest things I've ever done. So I'm super happy I did it.
How many months do you plan to still drive around that area, like Mexico, Panama?
I think another 4 or 5 months is what we have budgeted for.
Yeah.
So yeah, eventually we'll see how far we make it down. We might not make it all the way to Panama because we're spending the money a little bit faster than we thought, just based off random things like the van broke down and just random expenses that you don't think about, like camera things breaking, and gas is always a little more than you anticipate for, because whenever I budget, I'm always like, oh, it's not going to be that much, and then it ends up being that much. So we'll see how long it takes. We'll probably at least make it to Nicaragua. But
as a fallback, you still have the Prius, or did you sell it?
Yeah, so I'm keeping the Prius in storage. So when I get back, I can immediately just start making a little bit more money right off the bat, because I'm probably just going to run my account like to zero on this trip, to be honest. And so when I get back, I can make a little bit of money, and then it's kind of an old Prius. It's got like 250,000 miles on it, so it might not last very long. Honestly, I mean, I had a few issues. Like the dashboard is out right now, so I can't see like how much gas I have or how many miles you're going. But other than that, I had like a water pump go out, but I just went on YouTube and fixed it myself. You just spend a couple hours watching a video, and you could save a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
So I never really had too many issues with it. Those things are insane. I've read a lot of reports of them making it up to 400,000 miles sometimes if you take care of it. So that's
I read that as well. Like, and everyone is saying that, but like you can totally second that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm at 250K right now, and I don't know what's going to happen, but it seems like it's running fine for now, besides the dashboard being out. So.
But nevertheless, it's your second Prius, right? Like, because I saw that video where you kind of totaled your first one, and
yeah, so that's actually a funny story. So we were driving up to me and my girlfriend were driving up to Montana to visit her parents for a little bit because they have property up there, and we took the Prius and we hung out with them for a couple of days, and we were on our way back, and I distinctly remember this because it was our first, I think, big argument, which I honestly don't even remember what it was about, but we were just mad at each other for some reason. And we were driving down the road, and then all of a sudden this deer just hops right in front of the car, flies over it, and we're like, fuck. Like it was leaking something in the front. The whole right side was, as you saw from the video, destroyed.
Yeah.
And we had no service. We're in the middle of Wyoming. And
no service, okay.
Yeah, we didn't have any service. And we just kind of looked at each other and we're like, well, I guess we got to figure this out. Like,
Yeah.
despite how mad at each other we are right now. So we ended up like hitchhiking into this random small town. And then from there, we called, the deputy of the small town to file the insurance claim for the crash. And then we had to get a rental car at a nearby airport and then drive the rental car back to Colorado. And then I moved in with my mom for a month while I got the whole situation figured out and figured out where I'm going to move next. And then I ended up buying another Prius and then moving into that one. And then, yeah, that whole experience finally ended, which was a bit of a nightmare for a little while. Which is one thing, people don't anticipate when they move into a car, It's your house, it's everything you own. So when you get into a car accident, like, you got to pull some strings.
And I don't remember, but you also mentioned that in the video, I think back then you didn't have an insurance for it, right? Or did you?
Yeah, so that was
Yeah.
a really dumb mistake of mine. I was financing the car because I bought the car. I think it was like a $13,000 car that I financed, which was just a dumb idea. I bought it from a dealer. I never had experience buying cars, so I literally went into this place and they hooked me up with some kid salesman that was like my age, and obviously I vibed with this guy because he was my age. And 2 days later, I'm buying this car on a financing plan when I had like $500 in the bank, and I was like, "This." I mean, at the time, I thought it was a great idea, but in retrospect, after I crashed the car, I didn't buy this thing called gap insurance, which I'm not sure if you've heard of it, but it's basically the insurance is an extra $4 a month, and it'll cover all of the expensive that you need to still pay off on the car if you have it.
Yeah.
And I didn't get that insurance for whatever reason because I wanted to save an extra $4 a month. And when I crashed the car, I all of a sudden owed like a couple $1,000. I think I still needed to pay like $6,000 or $7,000, something like that, off on it. So I immediately owed all that money. So I just busted my ass in a new car that I got really cheap and was praying wouldn't break down, and then paid off that car, paid off the car that I now own, the Prius I now own, and then started saving money for this trip. So lesson learned, like, if you're going to buy a car to live in, don't finance it. And if you do finance it, make sure you get gap insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, I also learned about the gap insurance because I had to lease the car, and I didn't have to, but like I decided to lease it because back then I think I would not do that again either, because I was like never having an own car up to like when I was 27, and then I needed some because I was working for a local newspaper and had to go like to like different small villages where you have to like drive like 20-30 minutes, and with like public infrastructure, it's like really hard to reach. You can make like 2 appointments a day, and with car like 5-6. So it just made sense. And I had the option to either buy a used car or like and risk that it kind of can break down because it's used. And back then I was like, okay, but maybe get a new one. And I was leasing it, and I was doing way too much research because I have that habit that I like just overthink everything. But in that case, it was good because at some point I read about like, yeah, you definitely have to do the gap insurance because if you total the car or something happening to it, then you're just fucked. So yeah, but in the end, like I think like it's good to learn that kind of lesson. Like in my case, it was like to pay too much for it, or maybe would have better went with the cheaper car, as long as it doesn't ruin your whole existence. And yeah, glad that you made it and paid off everything. Like
yeah, I mean, it was a learning experience at the end of the day. Crazy though.
Yeah. So but what are your plans for the future actually? So first the Central America trip, and then back to the US. I guess Colorado, right?
Yeah, so I'm gonna head back to Colorado, or I don't know. We haven't figured out where we're gonna go yet. But basically, the plan is to head back, make money for another couple months, 3 to 6 months, I'm guessing, and then head out again from there. Probably not Colorado actually, because we want to live somewhere that we haven't really taken many photos, and I'm pretty sure I've extinguished every single slightly interesting spot in the entire Denver metro area of Colorado. So we're talking about maybe somewhere on the East Coast, or I'm not sure, but we're probably going to save up a bunch of money then and hopefully head out. Another thing I've been considering is getting some kind of online job. I recently got a part-time job writing articles online, So hopefully I can make a little bit. It's mainly just to make an extra couple hundred a month
Hmm.
to help supplement these extra costs of traveling through here. So if I could turn that into something a bit more full time with more experience, then that'd be ideal. Then I don't have to go work for a couple months, then travel again.
Yeah.
But the goal
Yeah.
is to just keep going.
I always like I'm always also at the moment, and that's one of the reasons why I found your videos like seeing like after COVID hit, I was like, okay, like I how to do the travel because before always like where it was, I don't know, flying to some country and then traveling through there, but at the moment you cannot do that. And there are many places in Germany I haven't been to. And I always hesitated to take a big trip because I was not willing to pay for the hotels, and like I'm not the kind of couch surfing guy. For some reason I don't like that. And then I felt like at some point, yeah, okay, let's use my car. And then I was like YouTube searching like how to sleep in your car, whatever, and then I discovered those Prius videos and like that you can basically sleep in there and leave the heater on or the AC or whatever. And I was like, wow, it's just like a killer feature. I have to sell my car and get a Prius or something like that, and that's how it went. But yeah,
So do you own a
I
Prius
think
now, or
no, not yet. I
not
still
yet?
have to say yeah, I still have to sell my car. So I'm a bit lazy when it comes to that. But yeah, I think I should do a video as well and then link it and yeah, maybe also
Yeah,
get
definitely make a Prius
1,000
video
views. I
because
don't know.
it's hot content right now.
Yeah.
It's definitely hot content. So I would make a
I,
Prius video for sure.
I saw that that you've seen the movie. I think it's called Nomadland. It was
Nomadland.
like
Oh
got the
yeah, that
Oscar.
is that
Yeah,
that is a great movie. Have you seen
you've seen
it?
that?
Yeah.
I've seen it. Yeah, there is that white bearded guy like that is like consulting the whole like nomad community in that movie, and except for I don't recall the name of Frances McDormand. I think is the lead actress.
Hmm.
I think she's the only professional actress in the whole movie. I think all of the others are yeah, just like regular people. And I saw that that bearded guy actually has a huge YouTube channel where he's like talking about like the whole nomad life and presenting other people's mini campers, stealth campers, regular campers, and also presenting one Prius. And I was like, I know that guy from that's the guy from the movie, and that was a nice thing to explore. So like, I think without your video, I wouldn't have discovered that. So thanks for that.
Yeah, I didn't know that he had a YouTube channel. That's pretty cool. That makes sense.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, that was an interesting movie because it was like relatable, but also not relatable because it
yeah,
was like the whole movie is kind of targeted towards like the an older generation
yeah,
using van life as a way to live out the last years of their life because for whatever reason they don't have a great financial background or plan to retire.
yeah.
So it was relatable in like the aspects of what they were doing, but at the same time I was also like I don't know. I feel like whenever we go out, it's more like much more energy based. Where they were just kind of, it seemed more. I don't know. There was just different generational takes on the same thing. So it was kind of a
Yeah,
weird gray area for me.
yeah, and I think it gave me some perspective on like the issues that society has in the U.S. I mean, like there's a lot of great things about U.S. society and like a lot of problems as well. But this is basically something that you don't have, at least in Germany, to that degree, because here you have like your kind of social insurance stuff going on, and as long as you have like your work life, like you're paying like a certain amount of your money into that kind of fund, and then you just get your retirement money, and yeah, like even here, if you don't have like they pay your apartment, like they pay you basically pretty much everything if you don't have the money and are a German citizen. So it's really hard. Like there are homeless people here, of course, and there are many homeless people, but it's not that easy to become homeless if you're like going to the institutions and like ask for the money and like do all the paperwork. And I don't know. It seems to be like a much bigger issue in the US. So like that is something that is like kind of a different approach, and also like many of those people, even though they might enjoy it, but like they don't have really an option. Like this is kind of like the necessary move to get by.
Hmm.
So yeah, it just like hits different, like than watching someone like yeah, like maybe you that is like doing it out of curiosity or like adventurism or something like that.
Yeah, I think you worded it really well. Like that, it's the difference of like me and others my age doing it just for the fun and curiosity, whereas they're doing it out of a necessity and finding the beauty in necessity. So, yeah, it's just different ways of looking at it.
Did you meet your girlfriend through that lifestyle? Because as far as I could see, she's also doing like pretty much, or did pretty much the same stuff that you did, or did she start through you
Yeah,
with the
so we
whole?
actually we met on Tinder, and
Mhm.
we did a photo shoot together and had an amazing first date, and we just kicked it off really well. And I ended up buying my car, I think within kind of around the same time that I met her.
Mhm.
That's kind of right when I started all of it, and she'd been doing van life for like 8 months before that. But she happened to be living in an apartment at the time because she was just going between transitioning to building out a new van. So we were hanging out for a while she was building out her van, and then for like the second year of our relationship, we'd basically just hang out at the same parking lots together at night. Like I'd park my Prius right next to her van, and if we were there
Okay.
at the same spot, then I would just go sleep in her van. And
Yeah.
some nights we'd be together, some nights I'd be off, Lyft or Uber driving and end up wherever and just sleep there for the night. But we would usually just spend weekends together and go on a small adventure around the states. Or sometimes you could get more time off, like a week or two off, and then we'd go on bigger trips together in her van, which is
Mhm.
how we eased into like living together in the van. So we knew we could do this big trip because we'd done like I think 2 or 3 weeks together at a time in her van before we took off
Okay.
on this.
How long have you been together now?
Probably like almost 3 years now. In April, it'll be 3 years. So 2.5.
Okay. So now you're in Mexico. I saw that you did some you got some previews of the Lucha Libre photos that you made a couple of days ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah. So
is it, hmm?
yeah, that was an awesome event. It was really, I've never even been to like a WWE event. And I don't, do they have wrestling in Germany? Have you ever been to one?
They have, yeah, yeah, but not as big as WWE by any means. Like there's one guy called
Okay.
Alex Wright. He used to wrestle in the WWF back then, and he started his own league, but it's very small here.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's crazy. I've never been to one of those events, so I honestly had no idea what to expect. And like, it was like I think $20 for like third row seats. So we're
Okay,
like,
that's great.
fuck it, let's do it. Let's go front row.
Yeah.
So we went third row, and yeah, I mean you're literally right there in the action. Like they're fighting right next to you at certain points. Like there were other stands that were next to us that they were crashing in, and the people had to move out of the way because they're like throwing each other
Okay.
into the chairs and running into people. Like it gets rowdy. So that was an interesting experience, especially for photography because it was like trying to figure out how to get photos of this, and I was honestly like unsure if I should even bring my camera to that event because it was in a bit of a sketchier part of town, and I was like, I don't know if I should bring it, but then I was like, you know what, fuck it, I'm bringing my camera. Like the whole point is to take photos. That's why I'm just doing this whole
Sure.
trip. So I'm bringing it. Like I have insurance on it. So it ended up being a great idea, and just trying to figure out how to get the shot was the fun part. It was just mainly looking out for when people were jumping in midair and trying to capture them flying through the air and smashing into each other and stuff like that. So that was a great experience.
So speaking of the gear, like what gear do you have, or like what do you say is the essential one you need to bring with you on like kind of trips and adventures that you're doing?
So I have a full setup. So I got like I'd say like the three main lenses you want. You want a wide, a medium range, and a telephoto lens.
Hmm.
Um, Everything else between that is more, for special cases. But those are the three zoom lenses you want. So depending on the adventure, I'll bring one or multiple lenses. Like if I'm doing like a 10-mile hike, I'll bring one lens. Or, if I went to that Lucha Libre event, I bring one lens. And usually I favor my 24 to 70 millimeter lens. I'm sure you know what that is. I saw you do wedding photography.
Yeah, I'm shooting on one right now.
Oh yeah, yeah. There you go. But yeah, that's my favorite lens.
Yeah,
Uh,
just
it's
very
just so
versatile, right?
versatile.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's amazing. And I have it on F4 because 2.8 is just a little too heavy. So,
Mm.
yeah, that was perfect for that event because you can get the whole square and arena. But
Yeah.
I'll usually bring all three if I can, even though my 7200 is a little bit heavy. But it's sometimes worth it because the worst thing is showing up to like a huge overlook spot and there's just no sky and you can't really get that great of a wide landscape shot if the sky or the light's not kicking very well. So you kind of have to start going a bit more detailed on your shots. So that's when I like to bring out the telephoto lens and zoom into things and get some textures or long range shots or something like that. So it's definitely a lifesaver to bring that thing, even though it is heavy.
Are you shooting with a tripod as well?
Yeah, I bring a tripod everywhere I go. Besides, like a Lucha Libre event, I don't really need it. But yeah, I focus stacking. Obviously, something you don't have to do in wedding photography. It's super important in
Yeah.
landscape photography. So you always focus stacking in time lapses and high long shutter speed shots, or you can't even get without you know an ND filter and a tripod unless the conditions are like perfect. Like you have a perfect log to put your tripod on, or you put your camera on, and it just happens to be dark enough to get flowing water that you don't need an ND filter. So, yeah, I bring the
Yeah, I
tripod
saw one
everywhere.
video today where you forgot your ND filter and you had to like where you were at the waterfall and then you had to use to shoot the smaller ones.
Oh
You
yeah,
remember that one? Yeah.
yeah, because you can't look up. The
Yeah.
light's hitting up there, so you got to aim down and find those like shadowy spots where you can actually create a longer exposure shot. And like you don't need to expose for too long on a waterfall, like 1 to 3 or 4 seconds.
Hmm.
I found usually looks better than a really long exposure, unless you're going for some strange artsy abstract thing with you know not a lot of flowing water. So
How do you pick the spots that you visit? Like, is it like you I don't know you plan to go to Central America and then you kind of figure out a map and like places you want to go there, or you go to a place and just roll with it, or you go to a place and then Google what the hotspots are, or ask locals, or like how do you do it?
So that's actually a really good question because in the United States, it's so easy. And I'm sure in Europe, it's because there's just a culture of shooting photography out there.
Mm.
It's a first world. People have the money to shoot these things and do leisure activities and travel more. So there's just so many guides about where to shoot photos and what it looks like before you get there. And, the perfect how to get there trail. Here's a cool composition you could shoot. The research is just so easy. You show up to
Mm.
Mexico, there's none of that anywhere. I mean, you'll find guides like the best places to travel to, but a lot of times they're like this winery or this restaurant, or you'll find like best Instagram guides of Mexico City, and it's like a pink wall that fashion bloggers like to take photos. And I'm like, this isn't something helpful. So a lot of what we've had to do in Mexico is just really I found all trails is really helpful. Like you show up to a spot, the app, and then you can just find trails, and you just kind of hope it leads to somewhere pretty, or searching on Google Maps, and really reading reviews is essential out here
Mhm.
because we've showed up to a couple places, and it's not like the United States or I'm guessing Europe where if it's like a huge national monument or park or something or landscape, it's owned by the government and it'll be open 24 hours a day to shoot and explore. Out here, like you can have like we're in Cabo, and the best landscape overlook in Cabo was just owned by some dude with a house, and he had a bunch of guardrail fences around it with guard dogs. And what he would do is he'd open it up every morning at 8 a.m. for 10 minutes, and then that was your opportunity to go in, and he would take you on a guided hike of it. And if you happen to show up to that spot and he just didn't feel like opening the gates, like you're out of luck.
Okay.
So there's a lot of situations like that, and like parks, or also sometimes if it's like a park in a city, like in Guadalajara, they'll just close at like 8 o'clock or sometimes even like 5 o'clock before the sun sets. So we'll show up to parks and I'll just be like, I'm sorry, it's closed, because they'll have guards at the parks just for like public safety and stuff and
Okay.
military there. So like you just got to read reviews and know what you're showing up into, because You know, another thing is like we'll read reviews on places and they're like, that looks really cool, but all the reviews are like, don't park here, your car's gonna get broken into. Like 20 reviews of just broken glass, and you're like, all right,
Really?
we're not going there. Yeah.
I'll go there then. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is actually something that also wondered. I mean, like many people are like having those videos, yeah, like how to camp in your car, how to stealth camp and everything. And yeah, some of them are also like about safety. But is that something like how did you? What's your experience on that? Like, did you pick the places you would park and sleep by your gut feeling, or did you do some research? I mean, maybe first in respect to the U.S. and then
Uh,
like Mexico.
yeah. So in the U.S., it was like at first I started off with all the cliche camping spots. You know, you park at a Walmart. I don't know if they have Walmart out there, or
Yeah.
grocery store parking lots, 24-hour gyms, street parking. But eventually, I got to the point where like I just stopped caring, and at least in my Prius, it's just a stealth setup. I would just park literally wherever, and I rarely would have problems. You kind of get used to people knocking on your door and telling you to leave if you need to leave. So it just becomes like like an aspect of that lifestyle. I know a
But
lot
that
of people who
happened.
are getting it's happened. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's happened to me probably like 15, 20 times in the past 3 years. And honestly, like most of the time, the guard or officer that knocks on your window is just embarrassed. They're like, sorry for waking you up. Like, just to let you know you can't sleep here. Here's a good spot you can sleep. So
Hmm.
uh, you just follow their advice and move on. But you could spend. I like to think of it as you could spend an hour or two driving around an unfamiliar area looking for the perfect spot to park where you're not going to get anyone knocking on your door. But at the end of the day, like I'd rather just not spend an hour or two every night, and I just park wherever, and I just the 5% of the time that someone knocks on
Yeah.
my door and tells me to leave is the cost of not driving around for an extra hour 7 nights a week. So it's just the part of the life you get used to. And you kind of scope out areas in the U.S. if it's dangerous or not um, pretty easily. Just walk into your local grocery store, and if there's bars on the window, like probably don't
Yeah.
want to sleep in that area. Um, but Mexico is a little different because I was kind of unfamiliar with the urban landscape, and like a lot of Mexico has buildings that look like they're run down, but you're
Mhm.
actually in a very safe area. Whereas like the U.S. infrastructure, like if buildings are run down, it usually means you're in a bad area. Like
Mm.
good areas, like everything's pristine. But Mexico, like you can be in a great area, but everything could be run down. So it was kind of this weird mind game I had to play where I had to kind of scope out and figure out where we're parking. We use this app called iOverlander, which helps a lot. People leave reviews on like where to park,
Mhm.
and that's been really resourceful because you can see other people saying like we haven't had problems here, we had problems here, whatnot. So that's a great component for. Sorry, my girlfriend's just mentioning something. But yeah,
No.
that's a great component for finding places to go to. Um, I'd highly recommend that app. We had one problem in Mexico where we
Mhm.
parked on the street somewhere, and some guy. I woke up to like some sounds by my window, and some guy was like trying to reach into our window and like was messing with things like on the screen, and I was just like, "Hola!" and he just
Okay.
ran off.
But
But
didn't turn out to be a dangerous situation. It was kind of a weird guy just doing
yeah,
stuff.
I think he was trying to like. I think he was going to cut the screen and see if there was anything within hand's reach of the screen because the window was like this big in the back of the van. There's no way you could have fit in it, even if he broke it. So I think he was just
Yeah.
going to cut the screen and reach around and see if he could find something to take.
Okay.
But so that was the only problem we've had in Mexico. Knock on wood, so far.
Yeah, I would say like I wish you guys all the best because like it doesn't seem like there's never been actually a dangerous situation whether in Mexico or the US that you did bump into, right? So far, hopefully
Uh,
it will stay like this.
I did have a few instances in the south of the U.S., like Louisiana, Arkansas, Louisiana area, where I've parked in a few spots, and I think the worst was that I parked in this Walmart in Arkansas, and this dude in this pickup truck. I rolled into the parking lot at like 2 a.m. because I'd been driving and I was just exhausted. and there was another dude in a pickup truck parked way down the parking lot, and he was just sitting in his car, and I was like, I don't know what this guy's doing, but I'm gonna keep an eye on him. So I started like preparing my bed to go to sleep, putting up my curtain and stuff like that. Then all of a sudden the dude starts like driving by my car really slowly, and I'm like, this dude's trying to look in my car and see what I'm doing. Yeah. So at that point I was like, all right, screw this. Like, I'm not going to sleep here. This is too weird. I don't know where I am. I'm in rural Arkansas somewhere, which is not the best place sometimes. So I was like, I'm just going to start driving. So I just drove my car, and this dude just starts following me. And I want to say for like 10 or 15 minutes, I was just swerving down these random back roads in Arkansas, trying to figure out why he was following me. In the back of my mind, I kept telling myself it's a coincidence. Like, he's just going the same way. But like, I knew deep down that it wasn't. So I like turned into this random neighborhood, and it was a dead end. And I was like, oh my God, like I'm screwed right now.
All ends here.
Yeah. So I turned around and do a U-turn. He's just waiting for me at the front of the neighborhood. Luckily, he didn't block me in or something. Like, he could have totally blocked me in, and I would have been screwed. But at that point, I was like, I am taking off. And I just gunned my Prius as hard as I could and just kept driving for another 15 minutes, and eventually he stopped following me. So that was probably my worst experience.
As long as you have the Prius, you can outrun anyone as long as you have full gas, because like,
yeah, exactly,
high mileage.
He was in a pickup truck. I'm like, you're not gonna be able to follow me forever.
Yeah, like you consuming like 10 times the gas that I do. So as long as you cannot overtake me, then you're screwed.
Yeah.
But you never found out like what that guy was about, like that kind of like maybe a cop or whatever. Like,
no, I mean, it definitely wasn't a cop. It was like a rundown black pickup truck. So I mean, definitely wasn't a cop. But yeah, I have no idea what he was doing. I kind of wish at the time when I rolled by him when he was parked outside that neighborhood, I was like, what's up? But at the time, my adrenaline was pumping so hard, I was just like, I need to get out of here.
Yeah.
So.
But that was like kind of the only time then when kind of felt like getting.
Yeah, I had another small experience in Louisiana where some guy rolled up to. I was parked at a swamp, and he just stayed there parking in the morning. Yeah, I know exactly.
Banjo playing dude on the back of his pickup, or like with the shotgun or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So, and my family had warned me too. They're like, "Be careful down there. Like, things aren't the same." And I was like, "Yeah, whatever." But it happened. So now I know. Just got to keep your wits about you.
Yeah, I have to think about that one scene in Family Guy where like they are in the swamps and like meeting Kermit the Frog. Like, you know that scene? No, you can YouTube it later.
Yeah, I'll have to YouTube it.
Yeah.
I haven't watched Family Guy in a while, but I used to love that show.
Yeah. Yeah, right. So I think we are kind of getting onto the end of the podcast, because we're pretty much approaching the 90-minute mark right now, 1 hour 28. Yeah, first of all, thank you for being on the podcast and giving us all those nice insights and interesting stories. I hope you enjoyed it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I had a great time. Thanks for having me. It was my, like I said, my first podcast, and I was a little nervous going in because I'm always used to the one asking questions. But I mean, honestly, you did a great job. I feel like your questions were awesome. So it was good to meet you, and I wish you best of luck with this podcast moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, and the same goes for you with your. I think you're focusing on Instagram right now, like not so much TikTok and YouTube. But whatever you do, I wish you all the best, and I will keep on following you. And also, I will, of course, send you all the stuff. Like I will do some small teasers and stuff, and then you can use them or not if you want to. Yeah, so I hope you have lots of great adventures in the future. And for all the listeners and viewers of the podcast, like thanks for sticking with us, and I hope you can tune in next time as well. If there is a next time, I have to figure out like who the next guest will be, but whatever, let's see.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Bye.